You're listening to Built for Nature, an exploration of how humans are designed to live, through first principles, light, water, magnetism, and the deeper forces that shape human biology. This is part 2 of a 3-episode series focused on deuterium. Last episode, we established that the isotopic quality of the hydrogen inside your body affects your health. We looked at where deuterium comes from, how it shows up in our water and our food, and how it interferes with the molecular machinery of the mitochondria. The inspiration for that episode was Gábor Somlyai's first book. Today, we move to his follow-up work, Deuterium Depletion, a new way in curing cancer and preserving health. And we go a level deeper into what may be the most surprising idea in Somlyai's entire body of work. Your mitochondria are not just energy producers, they also actively filter the quality of the water your cells run on. Let me explain what that means. So in the first book, the story was mostly about damage. Too much deuterium creates friction inside ATP synthase, energy production suffers, and disorder creeps in. But the second book flips the perspective, because Somlyai's research suggests that healthy mitochondria don't just tolerate deuterium, they actively work against it. During the process of generating energy, mitochondria help strip deuterium out of the internal cellular environment. In other words, your mitochondria are not passive victims of deuterium. They are part of your defense against it. This reframes mitochondria yet again, and we've reframed them a lot across the series. Nick Lane showed us how they are the engines that made complex life possible. Roland Van Wyk showed us that they are central to biophoton emission and cellular coherence. The standard biology textbook calls them the powerhouse of the cell and stops there. Now, Somlyai is adding another layer entirely. Mitochondria are also regulators of intracellular water quality. They are actively managing the isotopic environment inside the cell, working to keep deuterium levels in check as a routine part of producing energy. That is not a simple system. That is sophisticated biological regulation happening at a scale most people never think about. And it leads to a question that changes everything. If mitochondria deplete deuterium during energy production, then does the way you produce energy determine how well they do it? The answer is yes, and it comes down to fuel. Here is where the science gets interesting. Your body can run on 2 primary fuels: glucose, which comes mostly from carbohydrates, and fat, which comes from your diet or from your own stored body fat. These 2 fuels are not isotopically equal. Fat is naturally lower in deuterium than carbohydrates, especially compared to the processed, refined carbohydrates that dominate modern diets. So the simple act of choosing which fuel your body burns has consequences for your internal deuterium load. But it goes deeper than just the fuel coming in. When mitochondria burn fat through a process called beta oxidation, the metabolic water they produce as a byproduct is naturally lower in deuterium than the water produced from burning glucose. So fat metabolism is depleting in 2 directions at once. You're bringing in a lower deuterium fuel, and the process of burning it generates lower deuterium water inside your cells. Think of it like the difference between 2 water sources feeding a reservoir. Burning processed carbohydrates is like feeding that reservoir with heavy, sediment-rich runoff. Burning fat is like feeding it with clean snowmelt from high altitude. Same reservoir, very different quality of water flowing in. Over a lifetime of meals, that difference compounds, which is why metabolic flexibility, your body's ability to comfortably switch into fat burning, isn't just about energy or body composition. It is one of the most important levers you have for managing the isotopic quality of your own cellular water. Let's sit with this idea of metabolic water for a moment, because it's beautiful when you really understand it. When mitochondria burn fat efficiently, they produce water internally. This is not water you drank, it's water your body manufactured from scratch as a direct product of energy metabolism. And according to Somlyai, this internally generated water is naturally low in deuterium, which raises a remarkable realization. The body evolved to generate its own optimized internal water supply, a kind of internal spring producing pristine deuterium depleted water through the simple act of burning fat for fuel. This connects directly back to themes from Nick Lane's Power, Sex, Suicide, because it means mitochondria aren't just creating ATP, they're shaping the entire internal energetic and chemical environment of the cell, right down to the quality of the water surrounding them. And this adds a new dimension to what we discussed in the cancer episode. There we looked at how mitochondrial dysfunction breaks down cellular signaling and regulation, lowering the threshold for malignant transformation. Now add this layer on top. Since dysfunctional mitochondria are also less capable of depleting deuterium, then you have a compounding problem. The energy system weakens, the internal water environment degrades, and the cellular order becomes harder and harder to maintain. These aren't separate issues. They're the same system failing at multiple levels at once. Healthy mitochondria protect you on every one of those levels simultaneously. Damaged mitochondria fail you on every one of them simultaneously. So if fat metabolism is how the body naturally depletes deuterium, then anything that pushes you away from fat metabolism raises your deuterium burden over time. And modern life pushes us away from fat metabolism constantly. Highly processed foods, excess sugar, constant snacking with no break between meals, a near total loss of metabolic flexibility. Most people in the modern world are running almost exclusively on glucose, almost all the time. They rarely, if ever, dip into fat burning, which means they rarely, if ever, get the deuterium depleting benefit that comes with it. And here's where it becomes a vicious cycle. When you're chronically running on processed carbohydrates, your mitochondrial function declines. And as mitochondrial function declines, your ability to deplete deuterium declines with it. So you take on more deuterium, which further impairs the mitochondria, which further reduces your ability to handle deuterium. Modern environments create energetic stress faster than the body can compensate for it. The consequences of poor metabolic health run far deeper than most people realize. We're not just talking about weight or blood sugar. We're talking about the isotopic integrity of the water your cells are built around. There's one more layer here that I find fascinating, and it ties back to something I think about a lot: eating with the seasons. Consider how humans historically ate across the year. In the summer and early fall, fruit was available. Sugars were abundant. And as we discussed last episode, fruit, especially tropical fruit, tends to be higher in deuterium. But summer is also when sunlight is most abundant, when the body is most metabolically active, and when it's best equipped to handle that higher deuterium load. Then winter arrives, the fruit disappears, and historically, humans shifted toward fattier foods. Animal foods, stored fat, lower deuterium fuel, burned during the darkest, coldest part of the year. In other words, the natural rhythm of seasonal eating built in a kind of annual deuterium cycle. Higher deuterium intake in summer when the body could manage it, lower deuterium intake in winter paired with the fat metabolism that depletes it. Modern life erased that rhythm. We eat tropical fruit in January, we eat sugar year-round, we never go through the low deuterium winter our biology expects. We've already seen across this series how often disease emerges from exactly this kind of mismatch between the environment we evolved in and the one we built. Like his earlier work, Somlyai continues to frame cancer as deeply connected to metabolism, not purely genetic, not purely random, but influenced by the energetic state of the cell. When mitochondria becomes dysfunctional, when cellular regulation weakens, when energy systems become unstable, cells shift into more primitive, survival-oriented metabolic states. This overlaps strongly with broader metabolic theories of cancer, where impaired oxidative metabolism plays a central role in how the disease takes hold. Somlyai's contribution is to add deuterium into that picture as a key factor that can tip a struggling cell over the edge. A cell already under energetic strain, now also dealing with a degraded internal water environment, is a cell with fewer and fewer resources to maintain order. And we keep coming back to that same word, order. And this is how it all fits the bigger framework. Step back and look at what we've built across this series, because Somlyai's work doesn't sit off to the side. It threads directly through everything. Nick Lane showed us that mitochondria are the foundation of complex life and that energy production is the bedrock everything else is built on. Then Gerald Pollack showed us that water is not passive. It structures itself, holds charge, and actively participates in the processes that keep cells alive. Robert Becker showed us that life runs on subtle electrical gradients, and that those gradients depend entirely on the water they move through. Roland Van Wyk showed us that healthy cells emit coherent light, and that the order or disorder of that signal reflects the health of the whole system. And now Somlyai brings these threads together in a way that's so nice and tidy, it's almost too clean. Because since mitochondria deplete deuterium, and deuterium degrades water structure, and water structure governs the electrical gradients and the coherence that life depends on, then mitochondrial health is upstream of all of it. The mitochondria protect the water protects the structure protects the order, and order is health. It's the same idea, expressed at 5 different levels. Life is precision energy management, and the mitochondria sit at the very center of that precision. We'll get into exactly how to act on all this in the next episode, where we build the full practical framework. But the foundation should already be coming into focus. Mitochondrial health is everything. The more efficiently your cells produce energy, and the more time you spend burning fat as fuel, the more capable your body becomes of managing its own internal environment. Everything else builds from there. Somlyai's work ultimately points toward a simple but profound idea. The body is not just managing chemistry. It's managing physical precision down to the isotopic level. And the good news and genuinely hopeful part is that the tools for supporting that precision aren't exotic, and they aren't expensive. They're the same inputs that keep surfacing across every book in this series. In the next episode, we put it all together. We build the practical framework, what you can actually do day to day to support your body's natural deuterium depletion systems. And as we go through that list, I think you'll recognize almost every item on it. Thanks for listening.